Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Boxing, Weights and Rugby YouTube channel. Today, with my good friend Ryan, we will be talking rugby, and specifically, Scotland have finally dropped their squad for the 2023 Rugby World Cup in France later this year. And we're here to react and discuss and probably go over the games that have happened so far. How are you, my friend? The Wi-Fi has been brilliant the whole time. Now's the time it stops. So while the Wi-Fi continues to have a little bit of an issue, there we go.
I'm back. Sorry, Scottish internet, innit?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, how are you, my friend? How's things?
Things are very well. Yes, obviously up in the homeland, visiting family.
Yep.
Yeah, having a good time, enjoying what is not terrible weather. So yeah, it's decent.
It's rare. We make the most of it.
Yes, it's summer today.
Yes, and speaking of people that made the most of it, we were just talking off camera about the brilliant shot that the squad did when they announced it with the Forth Road bridges in the back, which made them all look like tiny wee players in perspective with everything else.
Yeah, they did look really small, didn't they? But it was just a very cool, very Scottish shot. It felt very patriotic. I just disliked that to get all of the bridges in to a very cool shot. Everyone was the size of a grain of rice. I found myself on Instagram zooming in on everyone to find out who was who. And I think I said to you as well, wondered why George Horn was at the back of the shot as well.
Yeah, why have they put one of the shortest men at the back of the row? Tony hates short kings.
But yeah, no, it was a stunning shot.
Scotland do one of the things we do very well is we do the drops really well. At last time was at the Palace, which I really liked in Linlithgow, and I mean having Gerard Butler, the voice of Stoic the Vast, and something I'm sure he's been in lots of other famous films as well. But How to Train Your Dragon's the one that I'll always do for me. But him doing the announcement for the squad was class.
Yeah, he's one of those people as well, Gerard Butler, very separate to rugby, but you forget that he's Scottish.
Yeah, with the world's most hammed up Scottish accent during the video. It was brilliant.
Yeah. But no, it was all very theatrical, and I was a big fan of it, to be honest. It felt like all the other previous squad releases. I mean, so far, what have we had? I'm probably only going to go tier one here. So we've had New Zealand announce their squad, South Africa have announced theirs, England have announced theirs.
I think so.
I haven't seen a France announcement yet.
I think it's coming after this weekend. I think it's next Tuesday.
I haven't seen a Wales announcement, but I might be wrong with that. I don't follow much Welsh rugby.
Unsure.
And I haven't seen an Ireland announcement. And out of them all so far, it just feels like this one's hit the most to say, right, Rugby World Cup is, 3 weeks away. Yeah,
it's kicked into gear.
It's coming. And it's coming home.
So have you been enjoying the games?
I've been loving the games. So much better than I could have expected us to play. Breaking them, going game. I'm sure we'll go game by game, but just collectively as a whole, very, very happy. I think the Bees, who were out against Italy, really did show up, and I know some of them didn't get picked for the squad, but really showed what they were about. Really everyone put their name in a big, big hat to get picked there. And then against the France Bees, that second half was just next level. And then against the Frances, as much as we lost that game, it just tingles at times on how good we truly looked.
It's funny, because we've been talking about how, so I don't enjoy watching everybody say, oh, watch out for Scotland this year, because I'm so used to us being the people that screw it up at the last minute. And what I prefer is just a peaceful run. And if we come up and pull up with the upset brilliantly, whereas this year people are like, no, Scotland are the dark horses. But watching the France game, or certainly I was sat there, I was like, that's world class rugby. Not for 80 minutes. We haven't managed that yet, and we have this terrible habit of just hemorrhaging points over, like, we tend to give up a lot of points really quickly and then tighten up again. It's really weird. But if you look at the rankings, we are comfortably now the 5th best team in the world. I will say Argentina have an unfortunate way of the world rankings, because they disproportionately play the top teams anyway.
Yeah.
But we're comfortably the 5th best team in the world. And, we've beaten France this year, we've beaten Wales this year, we've beaten England this year, beaten Italy this year, like, it's on set like twice. We've beaten a lot of really good teams this year. And we've only really had a complete disaster in the Ireland game, which doesn't necessarily bode well for the group, but we'll get to that. Anyway, here we're going to do a little run through of the 33-man squad. Now, I put out on Twitter my predictions, and I got 32 out of 33, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I didn't give you my predictions when we were chatting about it, because I think we both thought the same 33. I think the only surprise that we both had was Dave Cherry.
Yeah, I think it was very much a case of there was 31 places nailed on. And I think the only real discussions were one of the back row slots and one of the hooker slots, and that really was about it. So we have, I'm going to read it out in the order that Scotland have announced the squad, which I believe is alphabetical order, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Don't know why they've picked that in opposition, but never mind. So we have Ewan Ashwin, Jamie Batty, Dave Cherry, Luke Crosby, Scott Cummings, Rory Darge, Jack Dempsey, Matt Fagerson, Xander Fagerson, Grant Gilchrist, Richie Gray, WP Nell, Jamie Ritchie, Pierre Schumann, Havan Sebastian, Sam Skinner, Rory Sutherland, George Turner, and Hamish Watson in the forwards, with Darcy Graham, Blair Kinghorn, Chris Harris, Ben Healy, George Horn, Hugh Jones, Ali Price, Cameron Redpath, Finn Russell, Ollie Smith, Kyle Stain, Sui Tuipulotu, Duhan van der Merwe, and Ben White rounding out the 33-man squad. And as we say, the only two major points really that were up for debate was it going to be Stuart McInally, or was it going to be Dave Cherry, and was it going to be Josh Bayliss, or was it going to be Luke Crosby? And they've gone with Crosby, and they've gone with Cherry. Cherry's the one that was a bit more surprising, obviously well known as the sexiest man in rugby. To be honest, I thought Cherry and McNally were both really good in the warm-up games.
Yeah, I think McNally's genuinely unlucky to not go. I kind of expected him to go if he had a decent Summer Nation, purely considering this will be his last World Cup, and he's been such a servant for Scotland over God knows how many years now. I mean, what is it, 49 caps?
Yeah.
I kind of expected Gregor to actually give him that 50th cap.
I'm wondering if he plays against Georgia.
He might just to give him that tick in the box.
50th cap.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not picking you, but here's 50 caps.
Yeah. That's a chance for Murrayfield to say goodbye and thank him for everything he did.
Yeah. I can certainly think of another guy that we wish that we could do that to and haven't had the chance to. But yeah, I personally felt that McNally was probably on par between him and Cherry, the better one of the two. But I do think that Dave Cherry's try that he scored, was it against France B?
Yes.
Behind the Rowan Mall?
Yeah. Cherry's got a good few tries doing that.
Yeah. That McNally just doesn't have. And I don't know if that's purely down to Cherry's skills of just being able to control a maul much better, or if it's just pure luck being in right place, right time with right pack around him. But I think that probably swung Gregor's mind in the other sense, especially considering we are going to be playing two of the biggest packs in world rugby in South Africa and Ireland, and then another set of big packs in the groups as well, that maybe they just need that ability for someone to control a rolling maul much better. And if that was Dave Cherry coming off the bench, I mean, it's also not over for McNally. One of the hookers could get injured.
Absolutely, and it's one of those positions, and I think we can safely say that Turner's got the starting berth. I think they've got Ashwin pegged as the future of that position as well, with given his move up north. and he scored a brilliant try against Australia last year, if I'm correct. And yeah, it was one of those ones where I think it was a coin toss. I think we both thought that McInally would go. McInally was the one that I picked. But Dave Cherry was like in the form, I think it was leading up to the Lions tour. Dave Cherry was really, really on solid form. So it's not a major, it's just one of those ones you gutted for McInally. I hope he gets the chance at Murrayfield, but it's professional sport. It's not a, it's not a place for sentiment.
Yeah, that's also very true, isn't it?
And if Gregor thinks he's the man that, right, I've got somebody, say, in the Tonga game where he's going, right, we now need to win this game to get through, and say Turner's injured, and who do you want coming on for Ashwin? Then you go, right, I want Dave Cherry. If that's the man, then that's the choice that Gregor's got to make. And it's fine. I've got no issues with it. I think they're both, to be honest, I think we have 4 very good hookers. None of them are great. Yeah. I don't think we have any world-class hookers, but I think we have 4 very good hookers.
Yeah, I would say that they're definitely within. We are the 5th best team in the world. I would say that our hookers are probably of the start of that standard of probably being maybe not the 5th best hooker in the world when you take into account multiple hookers from multiple nations. But if you were to pick your top hooker in your nation, I would say that our hookers in fairness, both Ashwin and
Turner, both good.
They sit in that top 5 range. Although I do think that George Turner has the ability to be a world-class hooker. The way that he rolls about the field, the way that he tackles, the way that he runs, I think he has the ability to be world-class. He's just missing that spark.
Yeah, it's those arrows at the line out. That's what Turner's missing.
Well,
that goddamn line out. That's saying, because when we beat England and he nailed every single line out, he was world class on that day, and it's there. Nobody's hope for it. What do you think about Crosby for Bayliss?
I like Luke Crosby. I picked him in my team. I think that probably sells it for me. I think he's just an all-round better player than Bayliss. I think Bayliss has got a future with the team, sure, but for this World Cup, as you said, it's professional sport. It's not sentiment. It's not about taking guys because we like them. It's about taking guys because we know that they're going to back it up on the field. And I think that if worse comes to worse, Luke Crosby is there.
Yeah. What about the try? So obviously Bayliss showing that he's got one of the best steps in the game against the Italians. Does that not do anything for you?
Who's the guy on Instagram? Is it the rugby guy?
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. He was the first Instagram post I've seen as soon as Bayliss done that step.
Yeah.
I was dying. But I just think that Crosby probably has just a better all-round game than Bayliss. And if I'm not wrong in saying Crosby can cover a few more positions as well.
I think Bayliss can play 8 and blind, and I think that, to be honest, I think a lot of the back rows are very, I think they can play both sides. I'm sure Crosby can play blind as well as open. I think Bayliss gives you an option at 8, but realistically, we're not struggling at 8. We've got 2 pretty good options. So one thing I will say is I think one of the big things that played into Crosby's, because I didn't think he particularly impressed in the Six Nations. I thought he was fine. He didn't blow me away. I think him playing for Edinburgh has a massive part of that. The fact that he plays up here and he plays with all the other guys, and he plays so well for Edinburgh that he's been so good for Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And he's not, he's still relatively new. Like I'm saying, he didn't have a great Six Nations, but not many people do in the first one. You'll progress. And I think the fact he plays up here, the fact he plays with Edinburgh, the fact that, he did play a lot in the Six Nations, I think definitely went in Crosby's favour. But I do think we were looking at that as the 6th choice back row.
Yeah. And I guess that's the other thing that we've got to remember is how many people actually need to get hurt before Luke Crosby gets a sniff.
It's just one of those ones to look at it and you go, I think Darge probably starts now, and then you got Mish, and then Crosby. And then I think you've got, does Crosby go in above Darge on the blind side? And then you just put Watson in on the open if that sort of happens. Or is Matt Fagerson going to be the 6 to replace Ritchie? So there's a lot of options in the back row.
I think our starting back row is probably Darge, Richie at 6, Darge at 7, and Dempsey at 8.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that'll be the back row. We'll come to that, though. We will come to who we think will start against South Africa.
Yeah. So I think, Crosby's done well to get in, but I can't see him getting a start unless either a lot of people get hurt or we're looking at just a kind of warm-up game to get everyone's legs fresh.
One of the, like the Romania or the Tonga game that people are tired. But, like you said, if I see Crosby's name on the team sheet, I'm not going, Whereas before with Scotland, I've been looking at that team sheet going quite a lot. And it's great. Like like I said, I think this is the best Scotland team since the 90s. Like the early 90s, when we were actually good.
Yeah.
When we actually won things, which was before both of us were born.
Still the Five Nation champs. Just don't.
Still the Five Nation champs. Yeah, we were what, 5?
I don't know. Yeah, we won the last Five Nations, and then
but it wasn't a Grand Slam. The last Grand Slam was 1990.
But that doesn't. A Grand Slam doesn't bother me. It's all about the trophy.
All about the trophy, right? Other notable things from the squad is the last 2 names: Duhan van der Merwe and Ben White. Thankfully, fit to travel to France because I was worried.
I was less worried about Duhan. I think what was it? Was it Marseille they were in? With South France.
Saint-Etienne, I think.
Saint-Etienne, sorry. With South France. I think it was just an element of heat exhaustion that got to him. And then I've later found out that he'd actually pulled his calf.
Ankle, something like that. I looked at it and I was like, he looks like he's blowing.
Yeah.
He looked knackered.
Yeah. And he'd done a lot of running in that whole game.
He'd worked hard.
When the game actually came, when he came off, I just kind of thought he was probably just a bit tired.
Yeah.
And it might just have been that he might just have rolled his ankle or pulled his calf just slightly, just because he was just that little bit more tired.
Yeah, that fatigue.
And Ben White, I pray that he is good for that South Africa game, because he is a game changer when he is on form.
Yeah, I think he's the best scrum half we have. I will say though, Ali Price did his best game in ages in the France game in France.
Yeah.
And I was like, because he had a really good game against Italy in the Six Nations. I thought he was poor generally in the other, because he in the France game where he's at Murrayfield, like where the opening kick goes straight out. I think that was the Italy game or something like that. Anyway, whatever game he started in, the opening box kick goes straight out of the full, and he never really recovered from that. But I think Ali Price is the guy that's going to end up on the bench.
Yeah.
Rather than Horn. But yeah, it'd be good. Hopefully, Ben White, he's fit enough to get a game against Georgia.
But interestingly, with George Horn, I think that Ben White and Ali Price are too similar as 9s.
Why would Horn as an attacking option? He changes the game.
Oh, look what he done at that France game. When George Horn came on, we were just a different side again. We were getting that forward ball again, and it kind of, I don't know if he was the direct impact of the swinging momentum back to Scotland, but he definitely played a part to it.
I think the major part of that was the forwards started to get some go forward ball, and I think the French were blowing a little bit.
They were, yeah. They were.
I think so. This is, we'll kind of like come into, we'll round off the squad, and then we'll come into how the games have gone and what we're looking forward to. But to be honest, everything else in there's no other questions I've got. That's the exact squad I would have picked and I would have expected. The only one we were talking about earlier was Ben Healy, whether it was going to be over Adam Hastings, but that one was dealt with like a week and a bit ago. Adam just couldn't quite get fit for the World Cup, which is really sad for him because I think he's brilliant. But Ben Healy, really impressed. I expect him to start against Georgia. And I think, short of a, very, very handsome white-toothed individual who'll be in a studio somewhere, that is what I would have guessed as a World Cup squad at the end of the Six Nations.
Yeah, probably. I think it probably would be in that 31 or 33 positions, probably right.
I reckon if we go through, I'm sure somewhere we've done it. I reckon we've got 27 or 28 of those right. And it's just like 4 or 5 a couple of positions there. Havant Sebastian, knocked out Murphy Walker for the tight head position, which I thought, given Sebastian's performance at scrum time, that's the big one. I really do think for Scotland particularly, for props, that scrum is so huge. Like, if you can hold up the scrum for us and just trundle around the pitch for the rest of it, it stops us leaking penalties, and we have such a bad habit of leaking penalties badly at scrum time and line-out time.
Yeah.
Richie Gray stays fit. Grant Gilchrist stays fit. We've got a better chance at the line-out. Schoeman's looking good. Xander got lucky, I think, with whoever the disciplinary panel's new policy of everybody goes to the World Cup no matter what, worked out well.
Well, only if you're a Tier 1 nation, remember that.
Yeah, only if you're a Tier 1 nation. If you're a Tier 2, you get 10 weeks.
Yeah.
I will say my only bit that there is I ended up having to stop playing rugby for that exact type of tackle that the other guy got 10 weeks for.
Yeah.
That was the one that I got dumped in my head and it all went there. But it's ridiculous. It's not down to representation, but we'll not get into that because we're here for the Scotland stuff. Right. What have you made of the game so far? So we've had Italy and then we've had France home and away that Scotland won by a point on aggregate.
So should we start at Italy?
We'll go Italy and we'll go Italy up to France.
So the Italy game was pretty much our B team going out there. It was probably Gregor's chance for those who he was not entirely sure on who was going to make the squad, going out and make your statement for the squad. I think quite a few people probably got themselves on the plane. Ben Healy, for example, I think probably got himself on the plane for that. Overall, I was happy with it. It was a good blowout the cobwebs kind of game. No one got seriously hurt. No one done anything silly. No one, and at times through the game, I felt like we looked very good. For a majority of the game, I don't think we did, but I didn't expect us to.
Yeah, I thought the first half was particularly turgid.
Yeah.
For both teams, because it was the Italian B team as well. It was a non-game in the first half, but I think Gregor got into them at half time, and I think one of the other bits of the game was that cemented Darcy Graham starting on the wing.
Yeah,
I think that was the other big thing to take was Havant Sebastian impressed off the bench. I did Batty, so I think actually those will be the two. Well, I think Nell will probably be on the bench, but I think Batty might have knocked out Sutherland in terms of being on the bench. I think Healy confirmed his place on the plane. And I think Darcy Graham confirmed that he'll be starting.
Yeah, he kind of reconfirmed that he didn't lose any of his.
Yeah, he didn't lose any of the magic. Yeah, he's world class. He's one of the best wingers in the world. He's unbelievable. But yeah, that was basically kind of what I thought. We were there and we were like, that was Scotland won, great. Some players played well, some players didn't play great. And like you said, I think some got themselves on the plane. I think some of them didn't. And it was kind of when the big boys came back, you noticed a significant change in the standard of rugby for the France game. Yeah. The next week against the France B team. But Jesus Christ, the France B team good.
Scary. Did you watch any of the Under-20 World Cup stuff?
Yeah, bits and bobs. I didn't watch any of the full games, but I watched the highlight stuff, and they're just ridiculous.
That France, not just the B team, but the whole setup is terrifying.
Bian Beret, who was the winger, and the 13 whose name escapes me, I literally looked it up earlier, and I was like, right, I'll remember that. But the two of them were phenomenal. And Bian Beret might have made himself like a bench option for France. That they're amazing.
Yeah, how France are doing it. Their backs are quick and their forwards are big and powerful. They are completing rugby. Yeah.
If they can keep fit, which is a problem, that's what we're worried about.
And not France it. Let's also remember that the French are famous for a good old choke.
Yeah, well, that's we'll wait and see on that. I really, the blow. So we'll very quickly touch on the blow to Intimac is devastating.
Yeah, I'm really gutted at the number of 10s that are not going to the World Cup that really should. Roman Antimac probably topping that list.
Yeah, he's the one where I'm like, that's not as devastating for France as it would be if Ireland had lost Sexton.
Yeah.
But that's a world-class 10, like one of the top 10s in the world. It's a blow for all of us because I think he's great to watch, and him and Dupont are just special.
Yeah, they've got such a connection that just no one, and you know why, we all know why they've got a connection. They've played together since they were in the womb. But I'm just going to miss him, and it's his home World Cup as well. Like that doesn't come around very often.
It's the home one. That's it. It's just to lose that opportunity to an ACL injury, which is just one of those injuries where you hope he comes back the player he was.
Yeah.
But I thought the Scotland were again, and this is so we're going to quickly touch on the negative before we go on to the positive, which is we have this habit of starting games pretty badly. I think there was a stat saying that we have lost the first half in something like 6 or 7 out of the last 9 games. Yeah. But we've gone on to win the second half, which is a testament, I think, to our fitness, but also I don't know what we're doing in the warm up and our concentration. Yeah. But we also hemorrhage points, and we're having to come back from. We were 21-3 down at half time, and it's one of the I was there and it was amazing. It was one of the best games of rugby and the best ends I can remember. But you're not going to come back from 21-3 down very often.
No. And you're not coming back 21-3 down against France.
No, that's it.
Or even, let's be honest, you're not coming back 21-3 down against Tonga or Romania.
It's just one of those ones, isn't it? So I think Scotland need to work on that particularly, is making sure that you don't. 2 things. 1, when you do score, don't immediately give away a penalty, which is what we always seem to do. And then don't hemorrhage points. That's the other thing that we're looking at. But I thought the rugby, the tries, the game in France, which I think is the big one, was the one where I sat there and went, that's a world-class French team and that's a world-class Scotland team. And they were genuine, right? These are legitimately world-class players at this point. And you just go...
Playing legitimate world-class rugby.
World-class rugby, absolutely. And you go, right, that gives you legitimate hope, which I'm very uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I agree. There's stuff that I'm thinking that I'm not going to say out loud because I'll spectacularly jinx our Scottish ways.
Yeah, we'll just
push under the carpet and say we're going in the right direction.
It's positive, yeah. This is it. It's one of those ones where I'm going, I'm still annoyed at the draw.
Yeah.
Right. First question, who starts against Romania? Not Romania. Who starts against Georgia next weekend? And who starts against South Africa, all being well and everybody gets through Georgia?
I think they're putting out the Bs. So I don't think you'll see, if we just go for big names, I don't think you'll see Finn start. I don't think you'll see Ben White definitely not start. You might not. I think you will see, however, Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu. I don't think you're going to see Darge. I think you're probably going to see Hamish Watson. I don't think you're seeing Dempsey. I think you're going to see Matt Fagerson. But I think you'll see Jamie Ritchie.
Yeah. I do think Ben White starts. I think just to get him fit. But I would agree with everything else.
I was more thinking Ben White will not be fit, and that's why he won't start.
Well, so Gregor was saying that he hopes that Ben White will be fit for the Georgia game.
We can hope.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think generally we will see most of the forwards that are going to start against South Africa against Georgia.
Okay.
But I think there'll be a couple of changes. Of the 8, I think you'll probably see like 5 or 6 at the start. But I think you will not see 2 out of the 3 back 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you don't see Finn.
No.
Or Finn's on the bench anyway. But I would expect, my guess would be he goes Ben White and Ben Healy 9-10.
Mm-hmm.
He goes Stain, Smith, and Graham in the back three, with Kinghorn playing 10 on the bench. So substitute 10. That's what I think he goes. And I think he does Huey Piloto in the middle.
Mm-hmm. That's a good show. I can see that being the case.
So like enough that he's like, right, the boys that stuck, because they still need to keep going. You can't go, right, you haven't played there and basically not played for a month. You still need to play. But he's also not going to risk it against a very physical, really good Georgian team. Yeah. They're one of those teams where, like you say, they're capable of losing to like lesser teams than that, but they did beat Wales.
Yeah. So if Georgia decide that they want to turn up,
especially physically, those forwards, it'll be really interesting. I think that's actually a brilliant warm-up, a final warm-up game for South Africa. It really sets everything off well. Now, the South Africa squad is mental. 4 scrum halves.
Yeah.
I do think they intend one of those scrum halves to be a 10.
Probably.
But the 10 they do have is Lebok. And I actually think Lebok is a brilliant player. I'm just not certain how they're going to use him.
I agree with you. Lebok is a brilliant player, but much like how Sexton is so set on the island structure needs Johnny Sexton. I think the South Africa structure needs Andre Pollard. Yeah,
so I would agree with that as well. I think the point is, one, Pollard I don't think was fit, so hence why he's not there. I think he would have been there if he was fit. But I think South Africa are trying to change their system to be a little bit more dynamic, and I think Lebok is the team to bring that. But then it's a case of going, right, have they got it all together? Now, I think that Scotland are going to target South Africa, and South Africa are going to target Scotland and go, that's the game that decides who's going through in that pool.
I agree.
Because I don't think either of the teams really want to be looking at that Ireland team and go, that's the game we're targeting. But in terms of watching South Africa, right? So New Zealand slaughtered them for 20 minutes in that game. But then the rest of the game was dead even. They absolutely mullered a pretty terrible Australia type team.
Yeah.
And I think they just nicked it against Argentina. And I think it's a case of going, would Scotland have got similar results? I don't see why not. I don't think we murder the Australians in the way that, like, they were very competitive in the winter last year. But we didn't have a lot of our boys, didn't have a lot of their boys, and I think they are actually going backwards.
Yeah.
At the minute. But the big thing with South Africa, and again, like, I love boxing. In boxing, there's a saying which is styles make fights. And what that basically means is if fighter A beats fighter B and fighter B beats fighter C, it does not mean that A beats C, because it's all to do with the way that they play. And I'm still of the opinion that the way that South Africa play is the worst possible way for Scotland. I think stylistically, it's a bad matchup for Scotland. And I think in terms of the Ireland game, Ireland have a very similar approach in terms of the physicality and technically, but Ireland have the structure and the players, I think, are, like, especially in the backs, they're up to scratch. And I think a lot of the time I think Scotland's backline is brilliant. And I think a lot of the times with South Africa, that backline's got some incredible players, like obviously Cheslin Colby, Pimpy, Andreze. Willie LaRue is one of the best fullbacks in the world. But trying to get them to all play together in that system, that South Africa backline, hasn't functioned as well since it was at the World Cup. We were talking as well before about how South Africa have this ridiculous depth in the front and the forwards. Some of them are not as good as they once were. They are a little bit older, but I still think the difference is that pack's better than ours. And I think that is where Scotland generally get beat, is in the physicality, in that breakdown. As if we can't get parity there, it's so difficult to get the game to function around that.
So I've had a bit more of a think about that as well, and I think I'm going to readjust the way that I presented my answer to you previously. I pretty much said that on our day we're better than South Africa, and that's kind of the end of the story. And done in my usual way of saying I'm right, and that's the end of it. Don't argue.
I'm not here for a discussion. This is my opinion, and my opinion is gospel.
Yeah.
For clarity, by the way, that conversation ended with, Adam, you've made a lot of very good points, but I'm happy with my opinion.
Yeah, it did, and I still stand by the way that I set that up. I think you're right, however. South Africa collectively have a better pack than us. But I think what I was trying to get across, and did it poorly previously, was our pack is that little bit younger than South Africa's, and I think it is a lot fitter than South Africa's. And I think that St. Etienne France game probably showed how fit our pack really were.
So I think the France game really did give me hope, because that France pack is legitimately one of the best in the world. Like, it's unbelievable. And short of one bit where we kind of got blown away, we did really well. I thought Jamie Ritchie, for all he pissed off the referee, had a really good game. I think Rory Darge is Hamish Watson is probably the best Scotland forward I've ever seen. Yeah. And Rory Darge is looking like he could be that good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Watson the player he was, but I think Darge is looking at trying to get up to Watson levels.
Mm-hmm. We had a discussion about Jamie Ritchie's captaincy run against that France team, and we can chat about that later if you so wish. But I think as a player, not as a captain, he had a quality game against France, and I'm really happy with the way that he presented himself across on the field as a player.
Yeah, we'll get to the captaincy bit in a bit, but he does love a chat, and I think the referee took the hump with him, which was a problem. You need to then adapt, but I didn't think he was out of line.
I don't think he was chatting to the ref. I think he was chatting
at the ref. Yeah, and if you do that, then the ref should. The thing is, he's had his march back a couple of times, so I think that's something he does need to look at. But we spent ages saying, it's never something I particularly liked or agreed with, but complaining that Hoggy was too far away to have an influence. And then we've got somebody in the thick of the action, and they're going, he's getting too involved.
There's a balance there to be struck, isn't there?
There's a middle ground in there somewhere, but I think with Gilchrist and Russell, which I love Russell as a captain.
I think Finn struck that balance really well.
Yeah.
He's cheeky enough to get away with saying
the smile.
He done it against France, did he not? Where he went, it was a head-on-head to me, sir, it was like, this is kind of like the Ryan way of saying things. This is my opinion, and I am right.
It was my head he hit, so I know it was a head-on-head contact. Was I believe exactly what he said.
Yeah, and he got away with that. You know, I think if you piss off the ref too much and then say something like that, you get marched.
Yeah, it's not going to go well, but it's So I think that Scotland team against South Africa, barring any injuries, Gregor Townsend's written it down now.
Yeah.
And I reckon, so you correct me if you got anything you don't agree with, but I think it goes Schoeman, Turner, Fagerson, Gilchrist, Richie Gray, Jamie Ritchie, Rory Darge. That's the one I'm not sure about. Jack Dempsey, Ben White, Finn Russell, Tui Pilotu, Hugh Jones, Darcy Graham, Duhan van der Merwe, Blair Kinghorn. That's the 15 that start against South Africa.
I think based on the Summer Nations Darge is starting.
Yeah.
I think Hamish Watson is a quality player. I have, been balls deep in him many times in the past. Quite literally.
Clip that.
And he is a quality player. I just think at the moment, based on form, it's Darge.
That's two incredible jackal threats, by the way. Like Ritchie and Darge are just so dangerous over the ball. And if South Africa, you have Sia Khaleesi will start, and he's one of the best back rows ever. Peter Steph Toy, one of the best players in the game. This is the one we were arguing about. Whether he's lost an edge with the ridiculous injuries he's had to suffer, he's still one of the best players. And then Dwayne Vermeulen at number 8, that's a ridiculous back row. And it's whether it's a case of it's the greats versus maybe the younger informed guys. And at the World Cup, it does tend to go with experience.
That's true. Sorry, I'm putting my phone on charge. It is dying on me.
That's fine. We're not got too much more to go through, I think, to be fair. But would you make any changes to that starting lineup?
For South Africa or for us?
Yeah. I couldn't tell you the whole South Africa one. Could it be Kitsoff, Marks? I couldn't tell you the tight head. Yeah, I couldn't tell you the whole of the South Africa lineup, but I would imagine it would be Faf at scrum half.
Yeah.
And then Lebok, normal centres. There's no so what? What's his name?
I don't even.
The 13. The name's gone. Name's gone. Anyway, and then the back three is Leroux. It has to be Leroux because he's their second playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll be Colby and Mapimpi. So, it's a great team. But I think for the Scotland side, Duhan, it's got to be Duhan if he's fit. It's got to be Kinghorn if he's fit. And I think for the Georgia game, it's going to be, do you need game time, yes or no? How big is the drop-off from you to the next guy off the next cab off the rank if you get injured? And that's why I don't think we see Finn, because I think Healy's really good, but Finn Russell, we both think is the best 10 in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a massive argument to say that Finn is the current informed 10, right up there with the likes of Moanga,
Intimac, Sexton.
Yeah. I mean, you know my opinions on Sexton. Even in a club game, not in an England shirt, I would put Farrell up there. I think when he's playing for Saris, he's an incredible 10, but when he plays for England, he seems to lose something for some reason.
I think Farrell's brilliant. An absolutely phenomenal rugby player. It just does my absolute head in the way that he gets away with the tackles.
I guess that's what happens when you wear that red rose.
Yeah, it's just one of those ones.
Says us, the Scottish people. Of course.
Well, yeah, we're by. To be honest, my problem with a lot of it is the pundits, not the player.
Yeah.
I think Farrell's a legitimately world-class player at 10. I actually think he's a world-class player at 10 and 12.
I think he's a brilliant 12. Yeah.
Yeah, he's both. But yeah, I think this is the most optimistic I have been. So the World Cups I've followed Scotland are. I watched the 2007, didn't really follow it to the same degree. 2011, 2015, which we do not speak about. 2019, which we don't speak about for very different reasons. This is the most optimistic I've been in going into a World Cup, despite the draw.
Yeah. So I started watching the World Cup in 2015. So I didn't have a great first experience or a particularly enjoyable second experience, considering part of my family is Australian. But yeah, there's just, if that South Africa game goes well,
I'm going to be nervous. I actually think I'm going to be on holiday, so I'm going to have to find a place to watch it.
I am on holiday for some of it, but not the South Africa game.
I think I'm away for the first game. I have to find a way to watch it.
Buzzed to watch it. Buzzed. It's going to be incredible. I'm so looking forward to it.
I think that, given that Tooney's got a reputation for picking absolutely batshit crazy teams, that he's been really sensible. He's picked the best team, and I think this is the best Scotland team. Yeah, this is it. This is as good a chance as we're going to get, and we've just got to go all in.
Yeah, this is go hard or go home time.
Yeah, it's shit or bust.
Yeah, I can't, and I think the other thing as well is based on our under-20s performance, which I still blame Tooney for.
We don't agree on that.
Yeah, he's the head coach.
But he's the head coach of the senior time. I've told you this. It's Mallander's the performance director for Scotland. That's him. That's his job.
And someone at Scottish Rugby has screwed up the younger team.
It's the chief executive officer and the performance director.
Yeah, okay. We will agree to disagree because I think Tooney probably has a big hand in that somewhere. It might not be his title, it might not be his job, but they're coming in at his team.
Well, I don't think anyone's coming in his team.
That's the problem. I think this is the go big or go bust World Cup for us, for a
I
good
think we've
number
got to go
of
all
years.
in.
Yeah,
We've got to go all in. I think this is the peak for a lot of the boys there, and this is what we've got to go for. But final one before we call it a night. The big question is: do we make it out of the group? Yes or no?
yes. I'm saying it. I'm going hopeful.
You're
I'm
going
going
in,
hopeful, and it all spins on that South Africa game.
I think it's a very interesting one because if we don't win the South Africa game, we can't go, well, we fucked it and just give up against Ireland. You've got two cracks at this cherry, 2 bites at the cherry. What the saying is, that's the one. The South Africa game will put such a big spin on this World Cup for us. It's so important.
Yeah, and I quite enjoy it being the first game. There's something about
for us,
it. Just kind of,
yeah, you're just all in.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is? What I will say is I think it gives us our best chance because I think for us, it means our best team's going to be fit. Because I think for South Africa, if this game happens at the end of the pool, South Africa have better strength and depth in a lot of the positions. Because imagine we're going into South Africa and Fagerson's done his hamstring at tight head, and you're having to start Nel and Sebastian on the bench, or got a red card, or Finn Russell gets an HIA and then he's out. Like that's drops and those. I mean, the tight head, the props and fly half are the ones where I'm like, right, that's what I'm worried.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think for South Africa as well, it's going to be nice to see us go against a top 5 team.
Yeah,
they obviously sit fifth in the world, but I'm not overly abridged on how the fourth.
We're fifth.
We're fifth. I'm not overly abridged on how the scoring system goes for World Rugby, but we don't often get a run at a team like South Africa, who are that slightly bit different to France and that slightly bit different to Ireland, where they're just raw power.
What we tend to do is we get the autumn games, and it's the autumn games that tend to do that. The autumn games aren't as important to us, and therefore you tend to see maybe slightly mixed teams. Like I remember when we played Australia, because it fell out the window at Halloween last year, it was kind of a mix and match of basically just Edinburgh and Glasgow boys.
Yeah. So it's going to be nice to see a full noise South Africa go against a full noise Scotland in France. I'd be curious to see who the crowd's behind. Are they going to be just?
I mean, you would imagine it'll be Scotland, given it's closer.
And given it's rugby and it's kind of that northern versus southern hemisphere teams.
Yeah,
you would kind of.
It's just in terms of geography, it's easier for Scots to get out there. I know a few people that are going out there.
Oh wow! I wish I was going out there, but no, I would come home to an empty house.
Yeah, you'd be dead. It's just one of those ones. But right, we will call it there. What we will do is we will probably do another one of these around when we're both free, somewhere in the group stage, I would imagine, and then a post-mortem whenever the World Cup ends for Scotland, and a look towards the final. But thank you as always for joining, my friend, and thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know in the comment section what you're here for, and mostly whether you think that Scotland will get out of the Rugby World Cup. Other than that, have a great evening, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.